Okay, it's in the works.
Yep, I see it.
Okay. David, you're with us, correct?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear, Nathan. How about me?
Okay.
Hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I see it.
David, you're with us, correct?
Can you hear me, Nathan?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we got Peter, Steven, Justin, David's on here. Levi, are you with us yet?
Did Levi say yes?
I haven't heard from Levi. He usually chimes in a few minutes late, so we'll have to wait for him here.
I had a lot of trouble getting into the meeting. Was something wrong?
Yeah, we were kind of fiddling with stuff, so
Okay,
little growing pain, but I think we got her all smoothed over.
good. I feel better already, Nathan.
Well, we got everybody but Levi. We'll, okay, Janice said that he might be a few minutes late, so hopefully we get him in the next minute or two. We'll go through the first couple steps and hopefully he shows up then. Go ahead and call the special meeting to order. It is now 7:07 after technical difficulties. Are there any visitors who would like to be recognized? If so, they can go ahead and state their name.
Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
Hello.
That looks like it might be it.
Nathan, before we get started, just a clarification question. Is this technically going to have a public hearing aspect to this as well as the adoption in the special meeting?
We usually do a special meeting. I know there's some circumstances where it's warranted and some that aren't. So that's, to answer your question, I guess that's a good question. Justin, do you know the answer to that off the top of your head? That's kind of an oversight by myself.
Yeah, I thought this was a public hearing. I thought that's why we waited. That's what this date was picked for, was because it was going to be a public, that's what, I mean, Janice told me. So this was going to be a public hearing is what I was under the impression of.
Yeah, that's correct. And I get the main
Since
thing.
we're dealing with rates and stuff too.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be, I mean, she said it was posted for 2 weeks as a public hearing.
Yep. Okay, correct. So I need to open that and then close it, and then we can go on to voting. So that's something that I usually forget. 7:09. I will go ahead and open the public hearing for the 2021 budget amendment. And if we can go through, if you guys have questions or anything, and then obviously the public has any questions, we can address that. Looks like Levi, I think, is on here with us. So we'll go ahead and get started. I guess just kind of a quick overview. I sent you guys an email with the changes that I'd made. Steven and Justin had helped me a little bit on a couple of previous times on some of the stuff that we wanted to look at. See if I can open it here. Oh, maybe. Every time I say I'm going to get better at this, Steven, it doesn't happen.
One thing to watch is that only, I think, a host can share by default. So Janice's account may need to make you a co-host, and then you can
Sure.
share your screen.
Okay, there, I got it up. At least we can, if I need to share something, we can work on that. So I had some bullet points that I sent the council, changes that had been made. The first one, obviously, we talked about in depth previously, was the inactive rates. I have those reflected in this budget, as well as the rate sheet. Those inactive rates have gone to full rates, just for the water and sewer. Obviously, if they're an inactive rate and the residence or the building is not being occupied or used, the garbage service is not on there. But you guys have seen the sheet, what that total will come to for inactive rates going to full rates. So the sewer will end up going to $77.94, and the water rate would be $36.27. And then of course there's the utility tax on that amount, which is $22.84, would make the total $137.05. That's just straightforward, I guess. Do you guys have any thoughts or comments or questions on that part of it?
Yeah, this is Peter. I have a question. I don't remember having voted on any of this. Is that why we're voting on it tonight? I know we've discussed it, but I don't remember that we ever resolved these figures before tonight or before this resolution was sent out, have we?
Correct. Yep, that's why we're going through it now, and we're going to be voting on a resolution in the budget, which will affect put those numbers into effect. There is a waiting period for rates that we have to wait until it does go into effect, should it pass.
Okay.
And the numbers were before the council in an email that was sent out on Monday.
Yep.
But I don't know if you guys want to go through one by one and have questions on each item that was updated or changed, or if you want me to go through them and then just general questions, but either way. The second bullet point there that it was in the email that has been changed is to do with rates, and that's the difference in the prices for the cans. So we actually have 3 different size cans that are available. I think most everybody has the biggest can. I know there's a few smaller ones out there, but the biggest change being that the 96-gallon tote was at $20.07, and that went up to $22. I did adjust all 3 can size prices. Garbage is our one fund that we have a little bit of trouble with. You know, prices keep going up from our garbage service and fuel, and Lincoln County prices did not change this year, but they do often. So those prices have been reflected to help us try to keep that fund self-sufficient, which right now it is not. So the 96.
And just
Go ahead.
Nathan, may I interrupt?
Sure.
Just to make sure that we have full context on this. So that fund last year was underwater by, correct me if I'm wrong, Nathan, was it about 20 grand?
Yes, correct. It was, right around
Okay.
20,000.
And one of the primary reasons for that, well, if I remember correctly, it's twofold. One is due to the tipping fees, which there was some confusion by some people that the tipping fees are not an optional. We're giving the people a tip. The tipping fees are what we're paying for the weight represented. We essentially are paying 3 potential costs to the company that's dumping the garbage. One is the cost to service each can. There's the cost for the weight that's in the can as they go and dump it off at the waste transfer station. And the third potential one is the optional, or not optional, but conditional addition of they have some type of a transit addition that they can add on for fuel and unforeseen costs of moving the garbage. So we can't really affect the third one much. We can't really affect the first one much. And so we're going underwater on the fact that right now we only charge per can. We don't weigh each can. It's not practical to weigh each can before you put it into the truck. So when there is a less than $1 difference between the largest can at 96 gallons and the next smallest one at 64 or whatever it is, 30 some odd gallons of difference for less than $1, even though volume is not a direct correlation to weight, there probably should be some degree of correlation that if we can spread the differences between the cans, we hopefully will be able to recoup some of that loss of going under by 20 grand a year. So.
Correct. Yep. And that's exactly correct. This fund is really the most worrisome as far as what I saw from last year. So all three prices have been adjusted. You guys can see on that sheet. The 35-gallon can, the smallest one, not really that big of a change. That's only 6 cents. But the other two cans were a little bit more. The 64-gallon can was 50 cents, and the 96-gallon, which is our biggest one, about $1.93. So that's to try to help us not recoup. That's not the correct word, but to help us keep our head above water in the garbage fund.
Hey, Nathan, this is Justin. Didn't Lincoln County raise their rates this year for the tipping fee?
No, this year they didn't. So we get a little bit of a price break. So the normal fees went up, but we're still staying. They're keeping. So the fees, if you went in there as a citizen, are different, but for the cities, they stayed the same this year.
All right, but like last year they went up, right? I mean, they
Yeah, I
raised them
believe the
recently.
year before, absolutely. Yep.
I think too, we have to be careful as they raise those rates like 5% when they raise them, I think is what it was last year. So if we're looking at some of these, you know, the increases here, 0.3%, 2.5%, and then I guess 9%. But I mean, that's also a factor I think we should consider is, like you said, to recuperate. Yeah, this is not a for-profit, but this is trying to break even on garbage.
Yeah.
You
Yep,
know,
absolutely. We don't want to lose
so-
money providing
right.
services we can't. It's not good business for the city. And I know Steven's made it apparent a few times, you know, we don't want any more fees to go to the citizens than we have to. However, we do need to pass those on. That's our job, to be able to provide services and to be able to pay for those services. So as it stands now, we're able to pay for them, but we are losing money, and over time that's not a good plan.
Nathan, this is Peter.
Yeah.
How many inactive accounts do we have in the city, please? Inactive sewer accounts.
I think right around 20. I think the number that I put in for the 2021 budget was 23.
Uh-huh. My next question is, have we had any feedback from the citizens who pay for those inactive accounts?
I have not heard anything lately. I know there's definitely been some talk, prior to my mayor duties about it. I've had one citizen who had a property that had inactive fees asked to be disconnected, so that they were not sure if it went up, that they would not be charged the inactive fees, but no other feedback.
Okay. And have we advertised these account increases?
Not necessarily by themselves. No, this has just been advertised as the budget amendment, and part of that budget amendment is the increase in rates.
But did the advertisement include the amounts?
No, I didn't put the actual table that I sent you in the email.
All right.
Is that historically done to include the amounts in the advertisement? I
We
wasn't
haven't in the
aware.
past. We have not. This is Justin. In the past, we have not advertised the amounts. We said there was a public hearing to talk about rate increases.
Right. I just wanted to check or affirm that there wasn't historical precedent for that.
Is there a legal requirement?
To post the prices? No, I don't think. I think the public hearing is the requirement.
Are we sure of that, Nathan?
I do not know that verbatim for sure. No.
Okay.
This is
But
Justin again. I'll say that Bunny, when Bunny was the clerk, and we did this before, we did not. We didn't have those rates. I mean, that's what the public hearing part of the process is, to discuss what those potential rates could be. This is the process. So I would, like I said before, when I was the mayor, when I was acting as the mayor, I relied on Bunny with her 40 years experience to do that. We didn't do that.
And Justin, another question is that when we advertised before, I realized we just affirmed that the numbers weren't included, the proposed rate change wasn't included, but did we put into the advertisement that we were going to discuss a rate change, or just that it was a budget public hearing? Or do you remember?
No, it was a public hearing for utility rate changes. Yeah, I mean, it was specific. When we did it before, you have to. We talked about the utility rates specifically.
This is Peter again. At what general meeting did we have the public hearing on this issue? Was it January or December?
It's right now. This is it
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, we're doing it right now. We haven't had a previous one.
Okay.
We've just previously talked about it and the potential changes for both the can size stuff. Stephen spoke a little bit about that, as well as the inactive account price differences.
Hey, Nathan?
Yeah.
It's David. If my memory serves me correctly, and before I was on council, just shortly, we had a citizen in there that was concerned, and then it was brought up amongst the public at the meeting and the council members that going forward, we would either put it in a paper or we do something on a bill or address it to the citizenry first, or so they knew about it. If I don't know what meeting that was, but I think Justin, you were mayor at the time, I believe.
No, I was gone,
Yeah.
but it was, I think, the March meeting of last year. I was not at the meeting, but
Okay.
but if correct me if I'm wrong, Janice and Nathan, I thought this was published, right? This was published in a paper for a public hearing tonight
Yes.
on this topic. So it has been published that's why we had to wait at least 2 weeks, because you had to have
Right.
it published for 2 weeks. And then that's why this meeting we didn't have it sooner, basically.
Did
Yeah,
the
Go ahead.
sorry, Nathan, did the advertisement use the words rate increases or utility rates at all?
No, I don't know that the advertisement was just specifically for the 2021 budget amendment. I don't know that.
I think that might be
cited.
the crux of some of the concerns. Is can we adjust rates if rates exactly was not mentioned in the advertisement, and then there's a question of if maybe we can, but should we? I think is the concern being expressed.
And if the council chooses, if we think that it's not fully correct, we can still go forward with a separate advertisement if we need, specifically on the rate increases and with the rest of the budget amendment. We can make the certain motion can be made to accept the 2021 budget amendment minus the rates. Yeah, Janice showing me the actual ad that went in the paper. It has the ordinance that would be for the utility rate change, but not specifically those words. Those words were not cited. So if that's something you guys choose, we can certainly do that.
Would that require a separate meeting then?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. I would think so. If we're going to advertise it differently, then it would be wise of us to have another meeting for that.
My sense of it is that probably most of the citizens in our city are not aware that we're slated to vote on an increase in their utility rates.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, that as a budget amendment, I mean that's part of the budget amendment that has taken place. But
What I guess I didn't say it clearly enough. I suspect they may be aware that we're having a hearing on budget amendments, but they may not know the details.
correct. I would think that's as their job partly would be to get informed about that from us. But I definitely see what you're saying.
Hey, Nathan, is David. If I remember that it was talked about that being put on the monthly statement, the bill, utility bill. Is that still a viable option?
You're talking about putting the note on the bottom of the bill that goes out?
Right. Yeah, the announcement, I guess you call it.
Just depending on the timing. If we knew ahead of time enough, absolutely. If when the bills go out, if we knew that we were having a special meeting, if we had a special meeting for some reason after the bills went out, then obviously it wouldn't be viable. But
I'd be happy to complete the public hearing and to propose the adoption of the first 2 points of the ordinance, if that's something we can and you want to do, and then save the last 3 points for a separate hearing. I think there are voices that would prefer to be heard on this issue that I thought may be here that aren't here. That probably tells me that they aren't aware, and we might legally be cleared to move forward, but I don't think it would probably be prudent to do so.
yeah, and that's fine if that's what the council chooses. I mean, I don't want it to seem like we're trying to do something, like you said, even if it is legal, that we're trying to do something behind the scenes or anything like that. So, absolutely, I'm open to whatever you guys think. I mean, you guys have seen the numbers and see what things look like at least, so we have that out for any other discussion, I guess, that you have right now. And depending on whether the rate changes are passed or not, that will definitely affect some of the other bullet points that I had. So,
Stephen, could you describe the points in the resolution that you just alluded to?
Well, the document I'm currently looking at, I believe, is the text of the amendment for 506. It has 5 whereases. The first whereas is about the sales and service under a cemetery, reflecting no overall revenue change. And then the second one is the money set aside for the purchase of the maintenance vehicle.
Yeah.
I don't believe those 2 points would be highly controversial. So if it would be beneficial to get those moving sooner than later, I don't necessarily see a reason to save those for the next meeting. The rate the third whereas is on the wages, which in my book are dependent upon the rate increases.
correct.
The fourth whereas is the utility rate increase for the garbage, and the fourth is for inactive, and then the fifth is for garbage. So the last 3 whereases would be held, since they're all kind of part of the same concern, till next meeting, and we could adopt the first 2, in my opinion.
Thank you for the clarification. I was trying to fit your statements into resolution 225-222021. I was in the wrong resolution. I understand.
This is Justin. I wouldn't be in favor. I just would rather wait and do it all at once. I guess we've already pushed it off. I mean, I thought that the budget that we've been talking about this for a little bit, having this meeting, that we would publish it correctly and everything. So I think just waiting to do all 5 of those points at once, probably just as easy.
Yeah, I'd be kind of in favor of that. I think if there's some reservation on this, we go through whatever process we need to make sure that it's out there and we get everything together and just do it all the same. I mean, some of that can be done without the others, but they somewhat all tie together. So I think what I'm hearing is that we need to wait and set another date.
I favor that. This is Peter.
Okay, one thing I will ask going forward is once we get that set, a date and the publication in the paper, that if you guys have any additional questions, to get a hold of me beforehand, and be happy to clear anything up for you.
Hey, Nathan, just one thing. Are we going to decide tonight how we're going to announce this, either on the bill? Because we're at the end of, when do the bills actually go out? Anyway, the end of the month, correct?
Yeah. Yep. End of the month, first of the month, right in there.
Is that too much trouble to put it in there as well?
No, I don't think so. I think it'd be pretty easy to put it on there, especially being the timing of the month. So.
And that'll cover all our bases.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to get out to all the citizens anyways. I'm in favor of putting anything like that we can. So we will do that. Okay. And then obviously there'll be a publication in the paper, and we can even hang something at City Hall as well.
Good.
Nathan, is there any benefit to discussing these things now as a, I mean, we are in the middle of a public hearing, and we don't obviously have to vote on anything, or we won't vote on anything afterwards, but at least to hash out some of these things and see where it's at, so we have an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. This would be a perfect time to do it. Like I said, we're not voting or taking any action, so I'd be open for any other questions or comments on any of them, on any of the points. I'd give the floor to anyone that has anything else, comments, questions, concerns, anything of that nature.
Yeah, I have a comment. This is Peter speaking.
Sure.
With regard to Resolution 225, it occurs to me that in discussing the change in water rates for inactive accounts, we are focusing on the fixed costs of that. Whereas in the case of the garbage account, our proposal to raise rates or change rates is based on the variable costs of those different bins. And somebody who's watching over our shoulder carefully, I think, might complain because we're using both arguments to increase rates to favor the city.
Well, but I don't think that those are similar, because the city has no garbage infrastructure costs. We don't own a truck. We don't own a waste transfer station. Yeah. We have no fixed infrastructure costs. So therefore the arguments are inherently different. For the providing water and sewer to people, we have pipes, we have pumps, we have a water tower. The cost of an emphasis on baseline costs is appropriate because it's related to what we actually own. Yeah. On the flip side of it, I've made other arguments as far as actually to the point of not having infrastructure costs for garbage, that maybe we should look at the policy that we have towards the requirement for garbage. So I've tried to be consistent on the point that, you know, the infrastructure costs that are inherent change the argument between the two. But I wouldn't probably accept much of an argument of that being really valid, because they are two completely separate scenarios.
To be entirely honest with the citizens, we should weigh each can. Is there any provision for doing that? Does anybody know? Do you know, Nathan?
I don't know 100%, but I don't see any way that could be done. I don't know of anywhere that it is done or that it's possible. They come with their truck and hook it up and dump it, and it's just a total weight of that truckload when it gets to the transfer station.
Yeah. I assumed I knew the answer to my question when I posed it.
Yeah, let's see. If find something, and I doubt they have. I doubt the people who provide our service have the ability to do that.
Is it appropriate for a visitor to speak up?
Sure, it's a public hearing. I think so.
Okay. Peter, I've never, in my experience having garbage bills to pay, I've never seen any garbage company weigh the cans before they're loaded into the truck.
Yeah.
It doesn't make practical sense for the service providers to do that.
Yeah.
I know Steve
accept
touched
that.
on it before, but I think the general theory there was generally if you have a bigger can, you're gonna be contributing more weight to that truck. Now, obviously, there can be some instances where that's not true, but that's the theory behind the price change. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Nathan, I just want to chime in real quick to answer Sherry and Councilman Davenport. I do know that Spokane County, I think it's Waste Management or one of them, when they pick up a tote the size or whatever, they have the ability to know how much it weighs. Because if you go over that, they leave you a nasty gram and say you're overweight. I don't know what it is. I think you're allowed 60 pounds or something like that. But personally, I witnessed that. The neighbor was putting concrete in it, chunks of it, and it weighed a little more than and they got a nasty gram. Say that you must not, or else we'll start charging you more. So just for clarification, they kind of know.
Okay. Yeah, and I can check with them just to see if there's something like that available. But I don't know anything of it at this point.
Well, as far as going ahead and charging each citizen or each dumpster, that's a lot of clerical. Logistically speaking, it wouldn't be worth it. But
Sure.
Got a question.
Yep.
Did I hear at the very beginning that we were at 20% utility tax and now we're at 23%?
No.
Did I hear that?
No, we're still at 20%. The utility tax
Okay.
isn't changing.
Okay.
I guess the other thing I want to talk about, the purchase price or the money allotted for the maintenance vehicle. I set aside $15,000 to purchase a new city pickup, maintenance pickup. Originally in December for the 2021 budget. Part of this amendment is to add $5,000 to that. Justin kind of asked me one day, said, "Do you think $15,000 will be enough?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I've been doing some researching and looking, trying to talk with the maintenance crew, and then looking into our needs. I think going up another 5,000 to a total of 20,000 for a new maintenance vehicle is not. I think it's needed. We could certainly find something for cheaper, but how long is it going to last, and how many miles, and things like that. So that's just kind of some background on that. That's why that was increased or proposed. That increase is being proposed in this.
And if we get a vehicle for around 15, we still have 5 left. Can we use that on something else, or is it just that's it, 15 and it's wiped clean?
So if we have 20,000 to spend and we only spend 15, you're asking what to do with the other 5,000?
Yeah, I mean, could it go in something else like a
yeah, we should be able to we should be able to reallocate it somewhere, especially if we amend the budget again later in the year, which I'm sure will happen.
Nathan, does that money include outfitting the pickup to whatever need? I mean, I don't know what they currently have or what they generally need on pickups, but like a compressor or a winch, or even getting, decals or painting on the door if people think that's important for it to say City of Harrington on it, or just anything. I mean, is this supposed to be like a utility truck that's basically already coming completely outfitted for our needs, or would anything need to be purchased for it to make it appropriately useful?
Honestly, it could go either way. So this money is just for the pickup itself. If we had in the budget either room or something specific that we say, like a compressor that we want to put on there, we could do that. Now you could end up getting one with some of that stuff on it, but this is just for the vehicle. So I've been talking to Scott and Charlie both on what the needs are to make sure that we get something as close as we can for that money. But as far as the tools, most of that stuff will come out of the old pickup, and anything else we can stickers, stuff like that. If we have another area in the budget that will suffice for that, then we'll obviously, if we're running short, we can use some of the other money.
Nathan, this is Justin. It's a question not on the pickup, but on the potential wage increase.
Okay.
So the rates that you have, the wage sheet presented here, so it has a 2020 figure for both the public works supervisor and employee. So, but is that the current 2021 figure that we already approved in the budget a couple months ago?
Yes, you're correct. That you're talking about the heading that should read 2021. I'm sorry.
Okay, so 2021 is what it is now, or the 2020 regular is what it is now, and then the increase is this additional bump that you had been talking about.
Yes, correct. Yep.
So it's really 2021 new or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. That's my fault. That's a typo in the heading. But yes, under the 2020 regular column, that is the current.
This is Peter. I have a question about the resolution 225.
Okay.
Is there any way we can split up these issues so we can vote on them separately? Vote separately on the proposed increases or changes?
I don't know that. I imagine we probably could, but I'd like to do it all at once at our next meeting.
I admit that that's more efficient, but I still rankle over the increase in sewer service on inactive accounts. That might cause me to vote against the resolution.
Yeah, and that would be my thought, just because it is on one resolution currently as it sits, that it needs to be voted on. They're not different resolutions. We probably could do it that way if the council chose.
Nathan, can you go ahead?
I just have one quick question.
Yep.
I think we've covered this before, but as far as inactive accounts, are we the only community that we know of that does that, as far as gives them a discounted rate? Does anybody have an answer to that?
I think so, Levi, but I don't know that for sure, so I couldn't honestly answer that yes or no.
Okay. That's all I had. I was just wondering.
Okay, no problem.
Nathan, this is Justin. So is it potentially possible then to show a separate analysis if we don't raise the inactive rates, what the raise to everyone else would be?
Yeah, yep.
Because I think essentially, that goes back to, talking about equity and fairness. From me as a ratepayer to pay for somebody else that has the same ability and access to it that I have, but I have to pay their way. But that's essentially what I think might help people to understand is if we don't raise the inactive rates, that means that our rates are going to be raised by $10 or $15 each to cover that. That's a that might, I mean, that's a big number that people might be like, whoa, wait a second. But again, why, I mean, why are these people, I mean, they're being incentivized to not do anything with their buildings or their property because it's so cheap to do nothing with it.
Sure. Yeah, and essentially, any of the other points, any of the other parts of this amendment, if those rates are not changed, so the garbage is a little bit different, but essentially all the money that's changing is coming from the rates. So if we didn't do that, the wages are gonna not be increased. The same stuff goes along with that. So if we didn't do the utility rate increase, then the other increases wouldn't come in behind it.
We should be able to estimate pretty accurately what Justin was saying a moment ago, because how many active accounts are there versus how many inactive accounts?
230, I think. 225 is about the number of active.
Yeah.
Nathan, this is another thought to Peter's point, and maybe somebody else said it too, but maybe don't have that. Maybe the resolution right now is blank and we vote on each one of those things separately. And then whatever we agree on, or whatever gets voted in, then gets inserted into that resolution. That way it's an all or it's not an all or nothing. I mean, either way.
Justin, are you saying we should do straw poll on each one tonight in a non-binding sense to see what the council feels as an assembled whole?
No, that's not what I was suggesting, but I'm not opposed to that either. I just meant next time when we do this, if there's, to Peter's point, what he just said, that he might not be able to vote for the entire resolution based on one point. That's a fair assertion, and so maybe it's a matter of us pulling these out, because like Nathan just said too, if the rate increase doesn't happen, then the wage increase doesn't happen, and then that potentially might not allow us to have the money in the budget to raise the truck budget from 15 to 20. So they're kind of all hinged on each other. I mean, it's like a domino effect. So if one doesn't happen, and we don't have the financial ability to do the other things. I don't know. I mean, it's a suggestion, but the straw poll thing that you mentioned, Stephen, is I'm not opposed to that either. So
my only concern is that I would want to make sure that we would come into our next meeting with a finalized document for an up or down vote. Or you could, I guess, turn it into two separate amendments if you wanted to break some of these things up into groupings so that one amendment could pass and the other could fail. But my point is, I don't want to get into a position where we're like assembling an amendment on the fly. We need to have a document that will either pass or not coming out of our next meeting.
Yeah, and I agree with you. About the only one that I'd really want to pull out of this that could be separate would be the garbage tote rates. The rest of it, well, I mean, obviously the sales and service, that's just all that is adding a line. There's no money, nothing changing there monetarily, but the three other ones, the utility rates, the wages, and the pickup budget, really all need to stay together.
Well, Nathan, I would say the garbage does too, only because it is a utility cost that we charge that we want to have public input on.
Sure.
I'd be happy to participate in a straw poll vote, but it's just me.
Okay, what does everybody else think? Justin and Stephen are okay with it?
I'd feel more comfortable if we had a better feeling for what the citizens thought about this.
Well, do you think that in your opinion, does it make financial sense to do something like this? Essentially, we change the rates, and then that, like Justin said, that's kind of a domino effect, and then changes the other two, or we don't do anything at all.
How do they affect one another? I didn't understand that part of it.
So the budget for the pickup going from 15,000 to 20,000, and the maintenance worker wages are directly related to the utility rates for the inactive accounts. If the inactive accounts are not raised, which we have opinions that both ways, whether that should be done or not should be done, or shouldn't be done, that directly affects whether we can raise the budget for the pickup and the wages for the maintenance crew as well.
Yeah. Changing the rate on inactive accounts for the sewer rate is going to affect the city budget by about $300 a month. Is that a significant amount? Is that going to affect whether we can raise employees' rates or not, their salaries?
So I'll have to back up a little bit here. We're going from trying to find the base sewer for the.
Well, quickly, the $1.62 an hour increase for both supervisor and employee amounts to about $3,300 or something based on 2,000 hours. Would be about 30 something $100 a year. And so $300 a month, if we use Peter's figure times 12 is $3,600. And then plus the $5,000 extra for the truck. So that alone is $8,500. So the sewer coupled with the water, I would say, does have a significant effect on the ability to do that or not. So
I agree with your figures.
I think it has to be more than 300 a month, right? Because if there's 20 inactive accounts and there's the raise on the sewer and the raise on the water, that has to be significantly more than $300 a month.
I thought it was 12 accounts. I thought Nathan said 12 accounts.
It's right around 22 or 23 inactive accounts.
Yeah. Okay, I stand corrected then.
But Nathan, what is the current rate right now for the inactive water and sewer?
Jen's gonna look it up just to have a definite dollar amount. I think it's right around, I want to say it's 36 or 37, but we're gonna look it up right now so we have a hard number. Inactive. What about sewer? So inactive water is 1432, and then you have the utility tax on there as well. And sewer 2197. Oh, I'm sorry. 4197 is the inactive sewer.
So it's about $50 a month, probably times say 20, just an average number of 20, because there's some, like you said, some are going in and out. People are moving in and out. So that's $1,000 a month to the city. It's $12,000 a year.
Plus 20% utility tax. So
Yeah.
Well, 12, yeah. So that's 14.
So that gives you a little bit better idea of the money there, Peter.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. However, just a comment I would make, if we're going to raise the city employees' rates or salaries, I would feel much more comfortable if it were distributed evenly across all accounts. We seem to be focused on inactive accounts for funding the increase in salary. That doesn't seem fair to me.
Yeah, and we've certainly talked about that too. Justin's had a little bit of been a proponent of that, of just being able to keep up with our costs rising, and frankly, I was trying to not raise the active accounts, just because they've been raised. They're already paying that amount. It's quite a bit more, substantially more than the inactive, but we can certainly look at that too.
Hey, Nathan, just food for thought is David, that we start raising the rates on the inactive accounts. How many of those are going to unhook completely?
Well, we've had a request for one already, so that's hard telling. It could go either way.
Do we
Nathan,
allow
this
them
is
to
what-
unhook? Do we allow them to unhook?
I wouldn't see why not. I don't know what's in writing. I haven't seen anything that specifically says that it's not allowed.
It's my opinion, Nathan, right now, that we're actually darn lucky that we haven't unhooked and they're willing to pay that what they're currently paying, in my opinion.
Sure.
So I just think if they're going
Well, there
forward,
is a reconnection fee. I do know that.
Yeah.
Like if your water
Mhm.
gets turned off, the problem is we don't have the ability to turn off sewer. So I do know though there's a reconnection fee. I don't know the number, what the dollar amount is, but if you turn your water off, I guess
But
completely, when you go to turn it back on, then it's several hundred, $300 or something. I don't know what it is.
yeah.
When was the last time we raised the rate on the inactive accounts?
It went up a little bit last year, didn't
I
it?
think
2 years ago.
I think the last 2 years, because we actually used to be, I think a couple years ago, it was only like $25, like a flat
Mhm.
fee for everything. And we'd have to look at the minutes, but it was a really low number, and we made a big increase. Well, let's say a significant increase 2 or 3 years ago to try to bring it, to get it higher just because of the costs for the rest of the
Okay.
system. So, but last year it might have been the same rate that we raised everything else.
Okay.
If a person disconnects and they need to reconnect and they have an old meter or any other line, they would pay the cost of that, correct?
The reconnection fee.
Well, not just the reconnection fee, but any hardware, anything else that may have gone bad. It would be similar costs to getting the connection up to the same state as if it was, or a functionally similar state as if it was a new connection, correct?
Correct. That's my thought process. Yes. So if they disconnect from water and sewers at a building, so if we physically disconnect them with like the sewer, that's where just what I'm saying. You can't disconnect sewer, but if we physically cut those pipes and disconnect them, then obviously they don't. As long as there's nothing that we have that prohibits that, then when they go to reconnect, yes, those fees would go into effect. That time work and parts and the reconnection or the connection fees for sewer and water would go into place. At least that's my thought process.
And in the meantime, they would not be, such a place would not be on our schedule for meter replacement or anything else, correct?
Correct.
And the meters, I think, are about I think Scott told me before they were around $900 or just for the hardware itself. So plus several hours of labor hours too. So.
I got a question for you, Nathan and David,
Sure.
and possibly Justin here. You guys, I may have missed it, but anyways, if you have a meter that's bad right now and they have to replace it or update it, who bears the cost of that currently?
The city would. If they're hooked up and working, that meter goes bad, that's our responsibility up to that point, and including that meter, we would replace that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yep.
Just clarified. Thank you.
Personally, I'm not looking to play it both ways. If they want to disconnect, I think there should be some limitations on exactly how you can disconnect. Like, for instance, if I'm going on a 3-week vacation, I'm not going to call Janice and say disconnect my house for 3 weeks because I don't want to pay utilities while I'm in Europe for the next 3 weeks, right? Sure. There should be some limitations, like if you disconnect, you have to be off for a certain amount of time or whatever, right? But theoretically, if they aren't going to use it at all, I don't have a problem with them not paying it at all. But if they're going to have options to use it, then they need to pay the full rate, because to me, it's the argument of the base rate. So I'm not going to try and entrap anyone into the cost of it. But I did say that we should then talk about under which circumstances you can disconnect, because I don't believe it's a free for all, like the more extreme example I gave there. But that would be my opinion on it.
And I want to clarify too, on the inactive accounts right now, if a building has an inactive account or whatever, my theory of disconnecting is physically disconnecting the lines. So this isn't, well, I'm in my house, I'm moving out and I want to disconnect or I want to shut my water off. I'm talking physically disconnecting the lines, digging it up, capping it, it's disconnected. They are unable to use water or sewer. Now, if that property owner or future property owner wants to connect to services, then whoever that person is will have to bear the costs that Stephen and I just talked about. You'll have hookup fees plus time and labor and parts.
Yeah.
So I don't think a citizen would be able to have an inactive account and then say, just, well, I want to be disconnected and then just not pay anything, because that's virtually, they're disconnected right now and not paying. But that property would be physically disconnected. Whether that's pulling a meter, capping a pipe, whatever the logistics are there. And I may be wrong, but that's my thought.
Well, I believe that's similar to what would happen if you pull in a Vista service, right? I mean, we're not doing anything out of the ordinary. This is what happens for utilities, correct?
Sure. Yeah, it'd be the same thing, like pulling an electric meter. So what is the thought process here?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, Stephen. Well, this is Justin real quick. So when we bought our building that didn't have water, didn't have electricity for more than 5 years. So Avista made us have it inspected, and then they had to quote unquote re-energize it. And they charged us for that. There was a re-energizing fee that was on top of just the basic connection. So they wouldn't do that though until I had a licensed electrician come out to verify that all the wiring was correct. And then Avista came out and put a meter back in, electric meter, and then turn the power back on. So that's Stephen's. I think that's a great analogy. There's no difference if you do something like that too.
And we've talked about previously about the ability to be able to be hooked up. There's a fee, whether there should or shouldn't be a fee to be hooked up or to have the availability to use the utilities. If you're disconnected and physically disconnected and you don't have the availability to use those utilities and don't want to pay any money, in my book, that's okay. You don't owe the city anything if you're not connected to the system. Steven's got some microphone problems. Can you unmute, Steven? Oh.
You hear me now?
Yep.
No, that was strange. I tried to unmute myself and that said that I couldn't do it. I don't know if Justin's, sounds like maybe he's experiencing the same thing. which changed all of a sudden because I was able to unmute myself freely earlier. But no, I was just going to chime in to say that, I mean, I really don't see a lot of an argument for why the city would take a different perspective than any other utility company, right? If I buy a property, I say, you know, let's say you buy a house in Harrington, you're going to demolish the house and you just want to own a lot and you no longer need electrical service. You could tell Avista, I don't want the electrical service, and you can get rid of it, right? You aren't trapped into paying it, but as long as you have that electrical service, you're going to pay the base rate. I can't go to Avista and say, again, I'm going to be in Europe for 3 weeks. I'm not going to use any electricity. In fact, I'll even go to my breaker board and turn off the electrical to my whole house. So I guarantee you, I won't use a single kilowatt hour. So please give me a discount on my base rate. And that conversation is not going to go anywhere. So similarly, I really, you know, as far as equity or expectations or anything else, I really don't see that it's inherently in any way unfair for us to bring our practices up into alignment as any other utility company that I'm aware of.
Yeah, this is Justin too. To that exact point, we have a shop or a garage across the street from our house. We have electricity there. It's $15 a month or whatever the connection fee is. It's the same as my house. I have a base connection fee at my house. The difference is I get charged what I use for electricity in my house differently than when I get charged over there. But the base connection fee, regardless of how much energy I use, is the exact same. So again, to Stephen's point, I think is to be any different than any other utility is there's no reason for us.
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts?
So real quick, if I mute myself, will I be able to unmute again, or do I have to ask permission every time now?
I think you should be able to unmute yourself. Try it.
I just unmuted
Okay.
myself, Justin. I think we're good.
Okay.
And to that end, if we're not going to have a straw poll, just because I'm guessing there will be conversation coming out of this, much like there was last time this came to a vote before the council, so that my position and my vote is not a surprise to anyone if it hasn't been already assumed. And unless I hear some very, very convincing argument, I intend to vote to adopt the ordinance as presented in our next meeting. So that way no one's caught unaware.
Okay.
This is Peter, I'd like the option for voting on these various sections in resolution 225 independently. It makes more sense to me.
I just don't know that makes any sense, Peter.
Okay.
Because if we vote, being that they're directly related to each other, if the base part of it, the one that we're depending on, fails, then the rest of them are non-existent essentially.
I understand.
Right now we have a pairing of rate increases with expenditures. If the rate increases fail, but the expenditures pass, then we have unfunded expenses.
Correct.
If the increases pass, but the expenditures fail, then the electorate asks us, why are we paying more taxes when you're not doing anything with the money? So I think they kind of have to be put together as a whole, or it would certainly seem like it's a much easier argument when they're paired together.
Yeah, I understand your logic. I just feel there are going to be a lot of angry citizens who have inactive accounts who are going to storm City Hall when they see an increase in their rates.
And that could be. I mean, that's why I'm willing to do whatever we can to get it out there to make sure that people are aware or can speak their mind. I mean, whatever needs to happen. But other than we could separate the garbage rates out separately. We obviously know what that garbage fund is doing or not doing, and that, I mean, that still kind of ties into what Steven said.
Yeah.
Real quick, this is Justin too, for clarification to what Steven said. I don't think we can have the public hearing at our next scheduled council meeting because that's 2 weeks from tonight. I don't think there's enough time for publishing. So I think you're going to have to, if you publish it tomorrow or whenever you publish it, the earliest it would be able to be would be like a week after the council meeting for this public hearing resolution.
Can we shoot for the 17th? That would be the following week.
That's totally dependent on if the thing gets put into the paper.
Yeah, we can put it in this week, and then it'll run March 1st through the 5th and the 8th through the 12th, which will give us our 2 weeks, and then have our meeting on the 17th.
And then that would also go out on the bills then too, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Yep. David.
Definitely
Okay.
put a note on there so that's a good way to reach everybody, especially everybody that gets bills, that pays. So yeah, we'd do the ad in the paper, and we can word that to where it specifically, lays it out what the public hearing will be on, and put it on the bills as well. So does the 17th work for everybody?
Yeah. It's fine with me.
This is Justin. It works for me.
6 or 7 o'clock. Do you guys prefer earlier or later meeting?
Well, it's St. Patrick's Day, so just
That's right.
Let's do an earlier meeting then. Let's is 5 too early?
Any time is fine with me, but other people have more constraints than I do, I feel.
maybe 5:30 or 6. I don't know.
Let's do 6 o'clock on March the 17th, which is Wednesday. Okay.
Also, I guess I'll make note. I already mentioned to David and to Nathan, but if it is legal for the council to be in person, obviously we would have to maintain the Zoom meeting. But if it is legal for me to be at City Hall, I have an intention of being there. I think we still have an open question what exactly phase 2 means, but looking at the numbers right now and the progression of where we would be by the 17th, which would be 3 weeks from today, right? 3 weeks? Yeah, 3 weeks from today. That just, again, so that no one gets caught unaware, since there was a little bit of a kerfuffle about who was where in times past, that's my intention being made out there now, is if I believe it's legal for me to be at City Hall, I will be.
Yeah, and I can shoot out an email if we think we're good to be able to do that. I'll definitely let everybody know. Or if you guys see something in the meantime, either which way, whether it's we're allowed to or not allowed to, go ahead and get my attention with it. Okay. Anything else?
This is Justin. Does that hold true for the next council meeting too, on the 10th?
Yeah, I would like to, if we can meet in person with still giving the Zoom meeting for the public. Yes, I would like to meet in person, and I'll let the council know as soon as I know either way whether we're allowed to or not.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay, Well, since we are in a public hearing right now, I will go ahead and close that at 8:15 p.m. And guess we already had the chance for public comment, but is there any other public comment at this time? Doesn't sound like it. Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved,
moved.
Peter.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Peter and seconded by Steven. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, and I think we lost Levi, so motion passes 4-0. Okay, thank you guys. We'll be in touch and see you at the next regular meeting. Thanks, guys. You
Thanks.
too.